Tess, did
Thank
you want
you.
to? Yeah.
Thank you, Leah Honor. And I am Tess Greinock. I am the other research data and scholarly communications librarian. And with us today, we are is also Jake. I'm gonna get you to introduce yourself as well.
Right. Good afternoon, all, and happy to be here and looking forward to interacting with you. My name is Sheikh Kamara, and I'm the director of the Office of Sponsor Program. Honored to be here.
Awesome.
Okay.
And I'll end the poll and share the results so that everybody knows a little bit more about who's joining us here today, primarily staff, some faculty, and a GSBS student. Welcome.
Okay, we are recording this webinar today, so if you have any issue, you can leave your cameras off if you do not want to be included. The recording will be available on the library postdoc and seminar series website once it has been processed, and we will be sharing slides after this session with everyone who registered. So just a quick check if there were any questions about the pre-class activity of signing up for an NCBI account. If anyone had any issues, now's the time to let us know. We're happy to help troubleshoot. The other thing is that throughout this presentation, please feel free to unmute yourselves to ask questions. There will be lots of pauses for activities and feedback throughout the time, so we are happy to have you interact. You can also put any questions in the chat. We will be monitoring and taking time to stop and answer those as well. Okay, so let's get started. So by the end of today's session, hopefully you will have gotten a chance to and feel comfortable with adding citations to your My Bibliography. We will go over, so everyone hopefully understands the sections of an NIH Biosketch, and we will have a chance to at least get started on building a primary NIH Biosketch using the SciENcv tool. So first off, what is a Biosketch? So it is a specifically formatted resume that is now required for all NIH and AHRQ applications for research grants, and applicants are encouraged, not quite mandated, but we're getting there, to use the SciENcv tool. So before we get into SciENcv itself, you will need to have registered for an NCBI account. And if you have an ERA Commons account, you will want to link it to your NCBI account. We have already done that first step, hopefully, before this session. If anyone had any issues, we will go over it quickly again. And we will be going through a few other steps, the second of which is adding your publications, posters, presentation information, any citations like that into your My Bibliography to make them available to use in a SciENcv Biosketch. And then at the end of the session, Tess is going to walk you through the third step of how to input the information from My Bibliography and your most recent CV, which hopefully you do have on hand, into a primary Biosketch so that you have it to use as a template. So in the pre-class instructions, we did ask you to link an ERA Commons account if you have one. So just using a quick chat, use your reactions, thumbs up, check mark, whatever you want. How many people have an ERA Commons? Anyone? Couple? Okay. Yep. Couple people.
Yeah, I'm seeing like 5 thumbs up, so that's good.
Okay. So here you can see if you had any trouble. When you're logged into your NCBI page, under your account settings, there is this section for linked accounts, and that is where you want to put that ERA Commons so that the information contained in there, including all of that funding and grant information, can be auto-populated, and you do not have to sit and type anything in all by yourself, which nobody wants to do that. Okay. So the next thing that is great about using your NCBI account for SciENcv is that you can actually add delegates. This is just below that linked accounts, still under your account settings page. And what you can do is using an email, That's all you need to do is you need to input your delegate's email. And a delegate can both access and edit your SciENcv and your MyBibliography. This is often PIs will delegate either to their research coordinator, their admin, whomever. And all that is needed is just to put in that email. Your delegate will receive an email from NCBI, and it will contain a link. Once they have clicked on that link and accepted the delegation, then that connection will be live and active. So even before we get into SciENcv and Biosketch, a quick overview of another tool that is available in MyNCBI is your MyBibliography. So the best way to import your citations into your CV is to first have had them populated in your MyBibliography. So this should be all of your relevant publications and presentations. And because there are limits to the number of publications you can have in your Biosketch, there is an option to link your public MyBibliography page. And this is the only link that is allowed in an NIH Biosketch. So having your MyBibliography up to date and complete means that when you can insert that singular one link, it goes to the best view possible of all of your work. So how do we access MyBibliography? So when you are logged into your NCBI account, if you are already on the dashboard page, it will automatically show up on the left side. And there is the Manage MyBibliography link, which is underneath any listed citations that you already have in there. You can also access your MyNCBI MyBibliography directly by clicking on your username in the top right corner on any NCBI or PubMed page, and then choosing publications from the drop-down menu. That will automatically bring you to MyBibliography. So when adding citations to MyBibliography, it's always recommended that you can, if possible, to pull the article information from PubMed if it is available. This will include anything such as the PubMed IDs, the PMC IDs. It will all be automatically populated if it is available. If an article that you wrote is not in PubMed, you can add it using an RIS file, which is a standard file for citations that you can export from pretty much any citation manager you might be using, such as EndNote, Mendeley, Zotero, or a different database such as Scopus, if it is in there and not in PubMed. Or as a sort of last resort, you can also enter information manually for citations. These three options, as you can see, are listed in the drop-down menu under the Add Citations. The one type of citation that generally will default to having to be entered manually is things that are not standard journal articles or publications. So if you have any posters or conference presentations, any data sets or software that have been deposited in a repository somewhere that you would like to include as research products in your SciENcv, you will generally have to choose those options under the manual entry and then fill out the form. So just as a plug, if you are looking for a place to publish your poster or presentation slides or data set, we do have an institutional repository here at UMass called eScholarship at UMass Chan. And it is a great place to publish any of those types of non-traditional research products. Any work done here at UMass is eligible to be deposited in eScholarship. You can receive a DOI to add to your CV or Biosketch, and these materials would then be discoverable on Google Scholar, and you would get things like download and view information if you so choose. Okay, so back to MyBibliography. Once you have actually received your fellowship or grant, MyBibliography can be used to make sure that your papers are making their way into PubMed Central to become compliant with the NIH public access policy. Your MyBibliography will give you alerts if things are not compliant or are questionably compliant, and things that are fully compliant will show up in green. If you do have any questions, please feel free to reach out to either Tess or myself. We are happy to help with compliance issues. So another place that SciENcv is able to pull information onto your Biosketch is from ORCID. So quick show of hands, again, just use your chat reactions. Anybody here have an ORCID, use an ORCID, interacted with their PI's ORCID, anything like that? Couple fewer?
Yeah, we've got a four reactions so far.
Okay. Okay. So similar to your ERA Commons, your ORCID ID or your ORCID account can be linked under that account settings section in my NCBI, the same way as ERA Commons. And that way, if there are publications that show up in your ORCID account, you can use that to import them as well. Okay, so NIH, AHRQ, and the CDC are now requiring that all fellows and trainees have an ORCID and link it to their ERA Commons profile. We do have instructions for doing this. It will be on these slides as when we distribute them after the session. So if you have any questions about getting your ORCID, either signing up for one or making sure it is properly linked to other accounts, please reach out to us at the library. So we are going to do a couple of activities throughout this session, and here is our first one. So please take the next 5 minutes and go through the process of adding 1 or 2 publications to your My Bibliography. Doing this now means that as we go through the session, you will have content to populate into a Biosketch and SciENcv. So it's good practice, and if you run into any issues, let us know.
And if you are helping a researcher with their Biosketch and there's some publications that in their My Bibliography that are missing, feel free to go ahead and add those for the researcher.
Okay, so we did have a question about a public access compliance question showing up with a new publication. We're not going to really have time to troubleshoot individual ones right now. The one thing to remember is that not everything requires public access compliance if it is something that is not federally funded. So if it does not have NIH or AHRQ funding, or some European equivalent funding, it is not subject to the public access compliance policy, as well as a couple of other situations. So just because it doesn't automatically come up with a green check mark does not necessarily mean it's a huge problem.
Yeah. And you can edit the compliance or look into it by clicking on the edit status. So if it does not fall under the public access policy, you can edit the status, and then it'll walk you through defining whether or not it would fall under that that policy or not.
Okay, if we're not seeing any other issues, I think we're going to keep going. Feel free to keep adding things if you are still in the process. And we will continue building on this as the workshop progresses. Oops. So now that we've started putting things into my bibliography to make them available, let's talk about biosketches themselves. So there was an update in May of 2021. Some of those changes are highlighted here on the slide. So the most noticeable of that was that general biosketches are now only have 3 sections. There does remain a 4th section for fellowship biosketches called scholastic performance. So that is something to keep in mind. You are still limited to 5 pages for all biosketch types, and no figures or graphics are allowed. So do not try to embed or attach any files or any images to an NIH biosketch. So just as a quick demo, the old format you can see had A, B, C, D, the 4 sections. The new format stops at C unless you have specifically chosen to complete a fellowship biosketch, in which case you would then see scholastic performance on the bottom. So SciENcv helps generate a compliant biosketch by adhering to all of the required formatting, and it also integrates with, as we have mentioned, the My Bibliography, ERA Commons, ORCID, and other such resources to make it easier to fill in all of those different sections. So to access SciENcv, if you go back, we're going to go back to our NCBI dashboard. You will find that the SciENcv tool is on the bottom right-hand corner, and you will always see that link that says Manage SciENcv. So that will bring up this page. And once you've created your first biosketch, you will have it as an available document. So you can always go in and edit and change an existing one. But I think today, let's go in and we are going to create a new biosketch. So you can just use that plus sign, create new document. So whenever you are creating a new biosketch, we recommend pre-populating as much as possible. So that's why having ERA Commons linked is great. And the goal is to keep one primary biosketch that can sort of act as a template. So you do not need to add all of the basic information for each biosketch that you're going to submit in the future. So have one that has all of your education and all of your employment and all of your grant funding history already populated. And then you can use that as an existing document as your data source so that you can then go in and make changes onto your new version for each grant specific submission. This is also where you can pull that information from ERA Commons. And for this example, we'll be showing the screenshots today using the fellowship, I believe, biosketch template. So if you are not doing a fellowship one, you can just ignore section D because it will not show up on the general NIH biosketch template. Okay, so if you haven't already, everybody can go ahead and create a blank primary biosketch. This should take just a couple minutes, and if you do not have a current one that you want to use as a source template, feel free to use your external linked ERA Commons account, or if you have one that you have submitted in the past, go ahead and use your existing document as a template, and we will make some edits from there.
All right, can I get a show of reactions? Make sure that everybody's with us so far, created your primary Biosketch. A couple people, anybody having trouble? To 5, excellent. All right, so error using ERA Commons. All right, so hopefully just refreshing the page will hopefully get that. Something you might also want to check is to clear any cookies or browsing data that can sometimes cause some interference. But keep it posted if you're still experiencing errors later in the workshop. Okay. With that, we will move on. So as we mentioned earlier, the standard Biosketch has an education and training section and then sections A through C, whereas the fellowship Biosketch has that education and training section, but it has all 4 A, B, C, D sections. So what is each section? So section A is the personal statement with a list of up to 4 publications or research products, including career goals. Section B is positions, scientific appointments, and honors, including professional memberships and other experience. And section C, is contributions to science. This can include research experience. And if it's a fellowship Biosketch, you could include things from high school or undergraduate years or any professional experience along with your graduate research. And for section D, so this is only for fellowship, would be scholastic performance. And this is where you're going to list by institution and year all undergraduate and graduate courses with grades. And for postdocs, it's just graduate classes. And SciENcv mirrors this structure as well as all the formatting that's needed for your Biosketch, which is great and why we recommend it. So we're going to talk about the sections out of order, but there's a method to this madness. If you've already written some articles or article drafts, you probably know that rather than write the paper from start to finish, it can be easier to write it section by section. I know I find it easier to get the methods and data reporting done first, but before working on the discussion or introduction. And the Biosketch can be done the same way. Get the facts written down first and then work on what might take a little bit more effort. So we're going to first focus on the education and training and sections D and B, and then move on to A and C. So for the education and training section, which doesn't have a letter in front of it, you will need to list all of your post-secondary education chronologically, beginning with baccalaureate or other initial professional education, and include postdoctoral, residency, and other clinical fellowship training as applicable, listing each separately. And for each entry, you'll need to provide the name and location of the institution, degree received if applicable, month and year of end date or expected end date, and field of study. And you can add this information to ERA Commons and then it will auto-populate into SciENcv once they are linked, or you can add it directly here into SciENcv, and you can add as many degrees or you can add it manually, and this is what it would look like for that manual entry. And you can add as many degrees in training as you need using the add another degree training link. So the next section to look at is scholastic performance. And so you're going to need a copy of your transcripts for this. And so for graduate students, as I mentioned, it's all undergraduate and graduate courses with year, institution, and grade. And for postdocs, it's all graduate scientific or professional courses with year, institution, and grade. And if you have not entered any degrees into that education and training section, you're not going to be able to see or list anything for your scholastic performance. So you do need to do that education and training first before getting to the section. And once your degrees are added, you will see the ability to add courses for each degree. So the last section that I quote unquote easy is the section B, positions, scientific appointments, and honors. So this is where you're going to list chronologically in order all previous professional positions, scientific appointments, concluding with the present position. And but keep in mind that job at the pizza place that you had during high school doesn't really count as relevant. And you're going to want to list any honors as well. So this could be scholarships, fellowship awards, things like that. Did you get inducted into an honor society during your undergrad? That might count here. And so this is also another section that could be pulled from ERA Commons, and that you'll just want to review if it does get pulled in, just to make sure that it's accurate and correct. Or you can enter it manually as the other section as well. So we're going to give you a few minutes here to work on adding your education, positions, scientific appointments, and honors. Give you about 5 minutes. And if you have any questions, feel free to put them in the chat or unmute. We're happy to answer those now. In the interest of time, I'm just going to give everybody 1 more minute working on this, and then we're going to move on to the other sections. That's a good question that came in. Is it preferred that only STEM-related courses be added to Section D? No, you will want to add all of your courses into that section. All right, I am going to move forward, but feel free to keep adding those questions into the chat, and we will have some time at the end as well. So the next section is our Section A, and we're getting into some of the more in-depth stuff, stuff that you have to think about. So what should you include in Section A, the personal statement? So you're going to want to briefly describe why you are well suited for your role in this project, aspects of your training, previous experimental work, technical expertise, etc., and explain any impediments to past productivity if you wish. So this is a section that you're going to be probably tailor for each grant that you submit. So maybe this is a section that you have bullet points in for your primary Biosketch, and then you would flesh out when you're writing the one particular for the grant. So you're also going to want to, as I mentioned, tailor that personal statement. So that could mean mentioning grant application or your collaborators, as well as you're going to want to discuss ongoing and completed research projects and keep that to the past 3 years, and specific contributions to science not included in section C, which we're going to talk about in a minute. You can also mention past research reports, such as grants and awards, and again, only from less than 3 years ago, and identify up to 4 publications or research products that highlight your experience and qualifications. So you might be asking yourself, what is a research project? And anything on this list is considered a research project. So anything from the traditional articles, but also things like patents, data, educational aids, instruments or equipment, software, and preprints as well, as of 2017. The important thing about preprints is that they have to be deposited somewhere, whether that's bioRxiv, medRxiv, or even our own eScholarship at UMass Chan, which we mentioned earlier. So, but what's not allowed in this personal statement? You cannot include any figures, tables, or charts, no URLs or links, and you can't cite a manuscript that's under review, but you can mention it. So you can talk about it in the text, but you can't use it as a research product. So there are 2 sections to this personal or parts to this personal statement in SciENcv. So there's the text portion that is a simple text box, and then the research product section where you can add materials from either your My Bibliography, or you can use ORCID instead if you would like, and have your, and for this to work, you do have to have your ORCID account connected to NCBI for those both options to show up. And then you check the ones that you want and then save citations. So the last section for us to talk about is section C, contributions to science, where you are able to describe up to 5 of your most significant contributions to science, and for each summarizing the following: historical background and frames the scientific problem, the central findings, the influence of findings on your field or applications to health or technology, and your role in the work described. And each contribution should be no longer than half a page, including citations, in which you're able to list up to 4 key publications or non-publication research products, same research products as we mentioned earlier. And citations can be reused as well. So if you cited something in section A, it can also be in section C. There is an option to include a .gov link to a full list of published works. This is where My Bibliography linking to your full version is recommended. And no other links are allowed in biosketches. And as a trainee, this might sound hard, talking about what possibly my contributions to science are, but you could have mentioned previous projects you've worked on, collaboration, type of management that you've done, project management, was there projects you took the lead on, and if you're a postdoc, maybe have you mentored students? That's also another great thing to include for your contributions.
And just to say, this is where it can be really helpful to have manually enter things into your My Bibliography, even if you do not have publications that you can cite. If you have presented at a conference, or if you have any sort of contributed works to a workshop or anything like that, those can be included. And so you can list those as your contributions to science with their citations, as long as you have put them into your My Bibliography.
So the contributions to science section and personal statement is also where you could use metrics to tell your story, such as citation counts and downloads. And these can provide context and explanation for the impact of your work. However, you're going to want to provide some additional qualitative context and explanation to make those metrics meaningful. For example, if your work was mentioned in a policy, explain what the policy was for, describe how your work was discussed. You could highlight comments from news stories or policies or patents, or the work of students you've mentored. And if you're writing your biosketch as a new researcher, here are some tips you should keep in mind. So you want to consider your viewer, avoid excessive jargon, and use a humble tone. Also include only appropriate information. 2 to 3 solid significant contributions are preferable to 5 mediocre contributions. And also consider discussing why your contributions will be important. And also contributions you've made, such as your doctoral thesis or mentoring. And if you don't have any publications, describe your efforts on other people's papers and projects. So for example, I use this method, I conducted the literature review for this paper, I care for all the animals in this lab, things like that. And in general, reviewers base their expectations for contributions on the seniority of the person filling out the biosketch. They're not going to expect the same number of contributions from a grad student who is new to their research topic and a full professor whose knowledge of a research topic has expanded to the point where crazy things happen. So in general, some other tips to keep in mind: use the first person, use subtitles for each contribution, clearly summarize your role in the contribution, present your contributions clearly and logically, whether that's career trajectory, chronologically, importance, relevance to the proposed project, and get input from your mentors and colleagues. They've been through this process a lot of times before, and they're going to have some really great feedback for you. So adding the contribution to science is similar to that section A, with the description being that full text box, and then the citations where you can select between ORCID and my bibliography for choosing those research projects. So once you are finished your biosketch, you'll want to export it. We recommend exporting as a PDF, which is the format it needs to be submitted in, because of part of the benefit of SciENcv is that it does all the formatting for you, which can get lost if you export as Word and continue editing. You can have multiple biosketches within SciENcv and reuse the information that you've added to your primary biosketch, hence why we recommend it. We also have a short checklist here. However, we are so lucky today to have Shek with us, who is going to walk through how the Office of Sponsored Programs reviews biosketches and their checklists that they use.
Okay, so everybody should have received in the chat, there are links to 2 documents. These are what Shek is going to be referencing. So they should be available to anyone with the link. Let us know if you have any trouble opening them.
And Shek, we can see your screen. We cannot hear you.
So to thank you again for the detailed training and useful information. And I cannot stress enough the importance of using SciENcv for multiple reasons. First thing is it provides all the information that you need under one roof. So at the end of the day, you just upload your section A, and then you choose the publications that you want. And when OSP receive the biosketches, oftentimes when we see in the name SciENcv, we know that this is going to be an easy review process. Oftentimes, so as an academic administrator, I have my main file, which I upload to update based on the science and the proposal, and I work with my peer with that. There are several issues that comes with that. First thing, keeping the version control. So which one was the last one that was commented on and updated? And also making sure, again, I am using the correct information and format. And with that being said, I did send you, you should all have received. So so I'm not sure which one I'm sharing. So which screen are you seeing?
We are seeing the
The
pre-doctoral fellowship Biosketch right now.
Fantastic. Thank you so much. So I sent you all a two document. One is a checklist that we use, and the other one is a Biosketch that I developed. So I need you to help me review that, and at least so in doing that, we will be exploring and discussing some of the items that OSP uses. So using the checklist, and currently I'm sharing on my screen to Morgan Hunt Biosketch. And basically, OSP, the first thing that we do from the checklist is to make sure then the 5 pages that we discuss that is required is there. So that is our first one. And when we look at it, and it's just going straightly and counting the pages, I can see at the bottom of the page 4. So already we're fine. The next check is so to make sure there is a user ID or the credential. So that is the required information, and that is the one that is tied to SciENcv along with the ORCID. So most PIs, all PIs should have it, and in order to be able to submit a proposal. So like we see here, none is provided, so this would be a finding. So the position title, we looked at this and we just want to make sure you're listing the one that is relevant to the project. Oftentimes we see 2, 3, 4 different titles here, chair, the visiting scientist and all that. We appreciate all that, but there is a section in section B where you can list all your position and title, and that would be a great place. But here, ideally list the ones that will be associated with this project. Going down the list, so education, training, and all that. So the other one is the chronological. So this is where you will be listing your courses, your education and training, listed chronologically from the BS, PhD, Masters, PhD, postdoctoral, etc. So list the informations. So section A. So I'm not going to add much. I think Tess and they explained it really well. But where I want to draw your attention is if you choose to highlight some project and some citations, be mindful of those 3 things. So the first thing is choose a project that that add values to your Biosketch. So you may have 20, and of those 20, only 2 or 3 are relevant. Instead of listing all 20, just use the ones that are linked to this project in terms of science and scope. And the second one is if you are listing project, make sure they have not expired more than 3 years ago. This is another area that we look at. We do not pay attention to any other detail other than, so when did it start, when did it end? So August 31st, 2024, this will be okay. November 30th, 2023. So this is also okay because the project is still valid. 2029, so this expired more than 3 years ago. We will be asking you to remove this project here, this R21. So 2025, this is still valid, this is still valid, this is still valid. And the last one on our project, it ended February 2020. So because we're in November, so this is more than 3 years ago, we will also ask you to remove it. So any project that is current is good to list and make sure that they are relevant to the science. And the other one, make sure they are not more than 3 years old. So 2023, at this point, we should be, the threshold should be November 30th of 2023. So that would be okay. because by the time they receive it, the project is still less than 3 years old. Citation. You're allowed to provide citation here. And however, there is a limitation, which is 4 citations. Only 4 citations are allowed in Section A. And make sure also if they are federally funded or if they have been, so if they're federally funded, that there is a PMC ID listed along with the other information. So that is part of the public access requirement. So we will be asking you if this project is the first thing federally funded, and if the PMC ID, there is a PMC ID to list it. If it is not federally funded, OSPD requires that you put PMC ID NA. So just to show that you have not forgotten it. From our experience right now, this has been overlooked for the longest time, and we want to make sure we pay attention to that. So if you see a comment on any of your citations that PMC ID is missing, it's because of that. Section B, so pay attention to the title. So this is the required title: position, scientific appointment, and honors. So we always pay attention to that. So the previous version that that is now superseded by this current one, had the position and honors. And a lot of folks still carry those. So make sure the title is position, scientific appointment, and honors. Unlike in the education section, here NIH requires the information to be listed counter-chronological order, meaning newest to oldest. But what we have seen recently is actually people are listing that, but from the end date. Now, when the chronology is on the start date, so make sure then, so this will be 2020, so basically make sure it is listed in the counter-chronological order, starting from the end start date, not on the end date. So this PI will be asked to reorganize the position in scientific order to make sure they follow from the newest to the oldest and start on the start date. The same thing with the honors. So this should be the counter-chronological order. So oftentimes that's what we are seeing here. And we have also seen people put in the months and date. So so all those that may be allowed, but the general convention is just to put the date and no months and no day. So this would be preferred. Contribution to science. So it was said previously that you allowed 5. So the first thing that we do is to make sure we don't have more than 5. And under each of the contribution to science, you allowed 4 citations. And like we stated in the checklist, so 4 contribution to science and 4 publication and PMCID are required. So those are the items that we'll be looking at. So this is 4 contribution, and the first one has 4 publication, and we see that a mixed bag of PMCID and none. So we will be asking and inquiring whether these are federally funded or not. It may not always be available. So then if the if the publication has been submitted, but is still pending approval, you can put PMCID pending. If it is not federally funded, or if it has been issued before April 7, 2028, PMCID would not have been available then. So put NA or put whatever information that you have. Oftentimes, those information can be found in the PI's NCBI page. So it is cumbersome, it's time consuming, and quite frankly is boring. So moving to the SciENcv, all this work is taken for you. So you don't have to do, all you have to do is just to check. So the first one is fine. The second one also, PMCID is, so one has it, the other two don't. We'll be inquiring about whether these are federally funded or not. The third one, we have 5. So this is a finding. So only 4 is required. We will be asking you and the PI to choose, like to eliminate that, and also to verify whether PMCID is available or not, and to update accordingly. The last one is also in the same case, 5 instead of 4. The PI and academic administrator, if they're doing it on behalf of the PI, will be asked to verify and to choose one. So at the end of your Biosketch, so you're allowed to list your bibliography or your NCBI page. So this is a very important tool, and actually it was, I think this is the one of the only time when a hyperlink is allowed. We have seen also at times that PIs list as a source where their publication are listed. So the Google Publisher, and I believe there's another one for Yahoo and all that. Those are not allowed materials, so just stick to your NCBI. If we see those, we will ask you whether, so we will ask you to remove. So all in all, we're sharing this checklist with you. So if you are doing it, making sure when you are done, and if you're preparing it outside of SciENcv, before you submit it, just take a minute or two, go and follow the checklist. Make sure all the required information are there, or you are not including any information that is not required and that you'll be asked to do. Second, SciENcv is going to be required. We're just waiting on the start date. And I'm encouraging you and myself to really start the migration toward that. It's just a matter of when, and it makes all our job easy. So far, in this month, there have been 5 CV which were extracted from SciENcv. We did not find anything. We looked at it, all the information was there, all the format was there, and it really took us basically 2 minutes, go through the checklist, verify, and on the other hand, it takes about 5 to 10 minutes to review a proposal which is prepared manually. And we find ourselves repeating ourselves over and over because it becomes transactional. I have this version of the Biosketch I'm going to use. Any changes that is made there is not reflected on the next one. But SciENcv eliminates that and eliminates all the pressure points. So that's all I had for you, and thank you for attending. Do you have any questions for me?
Again, feel free to enter those questions in the chat or unmute. So I have a question in the chat here. Should the list of science products all be listed in some way in my bibliography before inputting into the Biosketch, or can some just be listed manually? For a manuscript that is still in preparation, is this not worth mentioning? Okay, there's lots of questions. All right, so let's start with the first question of should you list the science products that you're going to be listed in your Biosketch in your My Bibliography first? Yes.
Yes.
So that's answer that one. And second question, for a manuscript that is still in preparation, is this not worth mentioning? So it could be worth mentioning in your in the textual sections of section A and section C, but it could not be used as a research product. So you cannot add it as a citation. But you could mention that you do have a forthcoming publication on a topic.
And if you're unsure whether that publication is going to be even submitted in time, you can use the work that you did in like the science that was used to produce that manuscript and use that in the descriptions for your contributions to science. So you can discuss the project even if it's not necessarily referencing a specific publication if you're not sure if it's going to get out before the grant application is submitted.
Yeah. And better yet, if you post the preprint, you can cite that in your Biosketch. So you can have evidence that it is a completed manuscript. Just remember to double check with your publisher that they are okay with a preprint being posted. Most of them are. If you have any questions, Leah and I are happy to about preprints and publishing. That is something else we can also help with as well. And I have before in our last minute here, I just have a couple more slides I'm just going to share quickly, just to let you know about. So we do have some helpful links in the slide deck as well to some FAQs and SciENcv help. Also another great resource for students and postdocs for your Biosketch. If you'd like feedback on it, as well as practicing for an interview or creating an individual development plan, the staff at the Center for Biomedical Career Development are a great resource and strongly advise that you take advantage of it. And just to let you know, we also have one last upcoming seminar for 2023 on managing scholarly profiles. So save the date for that, December 13th from 12 to 1. And stay tuned for more seminars in 2024.
And all of those, all of those seminars will be linked, will be listed at the link that I just posted. And that is also where you can find recordings of previous seminars. And I'm going to post one last link. We do have a quick feedback form that we would appreciate if you have a chance just to let us know what you thought of the session.
Yep. And if there's any questions that get asked in that anonymous feedback form, we will answer them, send out the answer to everybody, because chances are if you have that question, more people have it. So, and we'll send it out to everybody who registered. And we're also happy to hang around for any questions that you might have right now. Or I can't speak for you, but
I can stick. I'm going to stick around for 15
all right.
Yes.
I'll stop the recording.